The courtroom air hung thick with the scent of polished oak and stale coffee, a suffocating blend that clawed at my throat as I watched my father, my own flesh and blood, rise from the witness stand. His eyes cold as winter steel, and declare with a voice laced in venom, "That fortune is mine by right. She built it on my back, my sacrifices, and I'll be damned if I let her hoard it like some greedy thief." The words slammed into me like a freight train, splintering the fragile remnants of my denial. My hands clenched the wooden railing until my knuckles bleached white, fury boiling in my veins hot enough to scorch. How dare he? After abandoning us, after the years of silence punctuated only by his drunken demands for money, he now dragged me here, to this sterile arena of justice, to strip me bare of everything I'd clawed from the dirt with my own hands. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder, but it was my heart that shattered, echoing in the hollow chamber of my chest. In that moment, as the room spun with humiliated rage, I vowed silently. He would pay. Not with money, but with the truth he'd buried deeper than any grave. I sat there, frozen in the defendant's chair, my tailored suit suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. The gallery murmured behind me, a sea of faceless spectators drawn to the spectacle of a family imploding. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Elena with a penchant for dissecting lies, leaned in close, her whisper cutting through the haze. "Breathe, Sophia. We'll dismantle this." But breathing felt impossible. My father's claim was absurd on paper. He alleged that the seed money for my tech startup came from a loan he'd given my mother before she died, a loan I'd supposedly inherited as debt. But we both knew the truth. That loan was a myth, a fabrication woven from his guilt over leaving us penniless when I was 12. Mom had scraped by on 2 jobs, her hands raw from waitressing and cleaning, while he chased liquor and loose women across state lines. I'd built Nexus Innovations from a garage laptop, coding through sleepless nights, turning a simple app into a multimillion-dollar empire. And now, at 35, with the ink barely dry on our latest acquisition, he slithered back, lawsuit in hand, demanding half, over $20 million. As the proceedings dragged on, my mind fractured into shards of memory. I remembered the day he left, the slam of the front door vibrating through our tiny apartment, Mom's sobs muffled into her pillow so I wouldn't hear. "He's gone for good this time, Soph," she'd said the next morning, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. "We'll make our own way." And we did, until cancer claimed her at 50, leaving me alone with a mountain of medical bills and a burning ambition to never be vulnerable again. Dad had resurfaced sporadically. Christmas cards with crumpled 20s, awkward phone calls begging for just a little help. I'd sent money at first, out of some twisted filial pity, but when Nexus hit big, the calls turned insistent, then threatening. "You owe me," he'd snarled in our last conversation. "For all those years I put a roof over your head." The hypocrisy ignited a fire in me, but I'd laughed it off, hanging up. Now, here he was in an ill-fitting suit that screamed desperation. His graying hair slicked back, painting himself as the victim. The judge, a stern man in his 60s with a face etched like weathered stone, peered over his glasses. "Mr. Harlan, you claim this loan was verbal, undocumented. What evidence do you have?" My father, Robert Harlan, once a charming salesman, now a shadow of regret, leaned forward, his voice steady but laced with that manipulative charm I'd grown to loathe. "Your Honor, my late wife and I discussed it often. Sophia was there, she knows. It was family money meant to come back to me." "Liar." The word screamed in my head, but I bit my tongue, tasting blood. Elena cross-examined him next, her questions like scalpel slices. "And why wait 15 years to claim this, Mr. Harlan? After your daughter built her company from nothing?" He shifted, his eyes darting to mine for a split second. Guilt? Or calculation? I didn't want to interfere. But now, "She's forgotten where she came from," the gallery whispered. I felt their pitying stares like needles. Humiliation washed over me, hot and unrelenting. How could he twist our history into this farce? That night, alone in my penthouse overlooking the city lights that once symbolized my triumph, the anger morphed into something darker, resentment coiling like a serpent in my gut. I poured a glass of scotch, the burn mirroring the fire inside. Denial had been my shield. Maybe he'd change, maybe blood meant something. But now, heartbreak clawed at me, memories of Mom's weary smiles contrasting his absence. I paced the marble floors, the city hum a distant roar, my mind racing through fantasies of justice. What if I exposed him? Dug into his past, the skeletons he'd hidden. Doubt crept in. Was I capable of that? Of becoming the monster to slay one? Obsession took root as I fired up my laptop, fingers flying over keys. Public records first, divorces, liens, arrests. Nothing major but hints. A DUI here, unpaid child support there. Not enough. I needed more. Guilt nagged. He was my father after all. But then I remembered Mom's final days, her hand frail in mine, whispering, "Don't let him drag you down, sophomore." Cold resolve settled in, a steel spine amid the turmoil. Revenge wouldn't be impulsive. It would be surgical, planned in the quiet hours when fear whispered failures. The next court date loomed like a storm cloud. I met Elena at a dimly lit cafe, the aroma of espresso grounding me as rain pattered against the windows. "He's got nothing solid," she said, stirring her latte. "But juries eat up sob stories. We need to hit back hard." I nodded, my voice steady despite the inner quake. "What if there's more to him? Secrets he's hiding?" She raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" I hesitated, moral conflict churning. Dredging family dirt felt dirty, but betrayal demanded it. "Hire a PI, I said finally. Discreetly. She agreed, and as I left, the rain soaked me, a baptism into vengeance. That week I buried myself in work, but thoughts intruded. Imagined confrontations where I screamed his sins, his face crumpling. Fear spiked. What if it backfired? What if I lost everything? But resentment won, fueling late-night searches. An old newspaper clipping surfaced. Dad involved in a shady real estate deal years ago. Accusations of fraud dropped for lack of evidence. Thread to pull. Suspense built slowly, like a pot simmering. Phone calls with the PI, a gruff man named Vince, revealed fragments. Dad living in a rundown trailer, debts piling from gambling. "He's desperate," Vince said over the line, his voice gravelly. "But there's something else. Rumors of an affair during his marriage to your mom. Led to a kid. Half-sibling." My breath caught, heartbeat thundering. Another child. Abandoned like me. Obsession deepened. I tracked leads, doubt warring with resolve. Was this justice or pettiness? Guilt flickered. Destroying him might destroy me too. But then court resumed, and his lawyer presented forged receipts. Crude Photoshop jobs of supposed transfers. Rage surged anew. "Objection!" Elena barked, but the damage lingered, tension thickening the air like fog. I took the stand that day. The wood cool under my palms, spotlights harsh on my skin. "Ms. Harlan," his lawyer drawled, a smug weasel in pinstripes. "Didn't your father support you emotionally during your startup?" Liar's bait. I met Dad's eyes across the room. His held a plea, or was it manipulation? "Support," I echoed, voice laced with suppressed fury. "He vanished when I needed him most." The words hung, raw and honest, but I held back the storm. "Not yet." The judge adjourned, and as I stepped into the hallway, Dad approached. His cologne cheap and overpowering. "Sophia, let's talk. Family shouldn't end like this." His hand on my arm felt like a brand. I shrugged it off, heartbeat pounding. "You ended it years ago." Walking away, resentment hardened into plan. The PI's report was due soon. Vengeance whispered promises of catharsis. Days blurred into a haze of preparation. Vince delivered. Proof of the affair, a son named Alex, now 25, living in poverty while Dad gambled away what little he had. Photos, birth records, irrefutable. But deeper. Evidence of embezzlement from his old job, covered up but traceable. Moral conflict raged. Expose this, and he'd face prison. Was I judge and jury? Doubt assailed me in quiet moments, staring at Mom's photo on my nightstand. What would you say? I whispered to the empty room. Heartbreak twisted, she'd wanted peace. But betrayal's scar burned. I confided in no one. Isolation amplifying the obsession. Fantasies evolved. Not just winning the case, but breaking him utterly. The final hearing approached, tension coiling like a spring. I reviewed the evidence in my study, the leather chair creaking under my weight, city lights mocking my turmoil. Cold resolve won. I'd reveal it all on the stand, let the truth be his undoing. Fear lingered. What if the judge dismissed it? What if Dad had a counter? But anger propelled me forward. The night before I dreamed of Mom, her voice faint. Be careful, sophomore revenge poisons the soul. I woke sweating, guilt heavy, but dawn brought clarity. It was time. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, the wooden benches creaking under the weight of onlookers as I took my seat. My heart hammered against my ribs, a war drum echoing my resolve. Dad sat across the aisle, his face gaunt, eyes shadowed. Did he sense the storm? The judge entered, robes swishing like a reaper's cloak, and called the session to order. Elena presented our defense first. Financial records proving every penny of Nexus was mine. No loans, no ties. But the real blow waited in my testimony. As I approached the stand, the air thickened, sensory details assaulting me. The faint hum of the AC, the scratch of pencils on notepads, the metallic tang of fear in my mouth. Ms. Harlan, Elena began, her voice steady. Tell us about your relationship with your father. I swallowed, layers of emotion peeling back. Humiliation from his claims, heartbreak from abandonment, resentment festering like an open wound. He left when I was 12, I said, voice trembling at first, then gaining steel. Mom raised me alone. He sent sporadic money, but it was guilt, not support. Murmurs rippled. Dad shifted, his lawyer whispering furiously. And this alleged loan? Elena pressed. Fabricated, I replied, eyes locking on his. But there's more. Much more. The room hushed, suspense hanging like a blade. The judge leaned forward. Proceed with caution, Ms. Harlan. Relevance. Here it came, the slow burn igniting. Your Honor, my father's not just after my money. He's hiding a life of deceit. I pulled the envelope from my bag. Hands steady despite the inner quake. Evidence of embezzlement from his former employer in 2005. Over $50,000 siphoned. Case dropped due to a payoff. Gasps echoed. Dad's face paled, a ghost in the flesh. His lawyer objected, voice cracking. Irrelevant character assassination. But the judge overruled, curiosity piqued. I continued, voice laced with cold fury. And an affair during his marriage to my mother. Resulting in a son, my half-brother, whom he's ignored just like me. I slid the documents forward. Birth certificate, photos of Alex in a dingy apartment, bank statements showing Dad's gambling debts while his son scraped by. The courtroom erupted in whispers, tension crackling like electricity. Dad stood, face ashen, voice hoarse. Sophia, how could you? Betrayal mirrored in his eyes. The irony bitter. How could I? I shot back, rage unleashing. You dragged us here, demanding what you never earned. You abandoned Mom, left her to die broke while you chased vices. And now this. Tears stung, but I blinked them away, obsession's fire burning bright. The judge banged his gavel, restoring order, but the damage was done. Elena seized the moment. Your Honor, this proves motive, desperation from a man evading his past. Dad slumped, silent. His manipulative charm shattered. But doubt flickered amid the triumph. Had I gone too far? Guilt whispered as I watched him, a broken man, moral grayness clouding my victory. The prosecution scrambled, but the jury's faces showed disgust. Recess was called, and in the hallway, Dad cornered me, his breath reeking of defeat. You didn't have to do this, he murmured, voice cracking. I just needed help. Manipulation's last gasp. You needed to face yourself, I replied, heartbeat steady now. For Mom. For Alex. He walked away, shoulders bowed, the weight of his sins crushing. Back in session the payoff loomed. The judge questioned Dad. "Mr. Harlan, care to respond?" Silence stretched, suspense taut. Then, in a whisper that echoed like a confession, "It's true. All of it." The room stilled, my breath caught. But then the twist. He looked at me, eyes glistening. "But Sophia, I'm not your father." The words detonated, shock rippling through me. "What?" I gasped, world tilting. "Your mother. She had an affair too. Revenge for mine. You're not mine by blood." Proof. A DNA test he'd kept hidden, waved now like a white flag, or a final stab. The judge paled, gavel frozen. Elena objected, but chaos ensued. Poetic justice twisted. My revenge unearthed my own unmooring. Heartbreak anew, but resolve held. I'd won the case, fortune intact, but identity fractured. As Dad was led away, charges pending for old crimes revived. He glanced back, silent. I stood amid the debris, obsession sated, yet hollow. Revenge's price. Truth's double edge. In the end, betrayal begot betrayal, leaving me to rebuild from ashes once more.